Hey everyone, glad you're here, Pratap. Today we're looking at 27 public safety bans that somehow made everything less safe.
Nothing says freedom like a government banning flip-flops for safety. 1. The Great Kinder Egg Crisis. America, land of the free, unless you want a chocolate egg with a toy inside. Kinder Surprise eggs are banned in the US because, apparently, children can't be trusted not to eat the plastic toy. Meanwhile, fireworks, hunting rifles, and monster trucks are totally fine. Customs agents have actually seized thousands of these dangerous confections, treating them like narcotics. The official reasoning? Choking hazard. The real reason? Bureaucratic paranoia. Because if there's one thing America fears more than tyranny, it's the possibility of a toddler confusing chocolate for Lego. Ironically, the rest of the world has survived decades of edible joy without mass casualties. So, if you ever see someone smuggling chocolate eggs across the border, they're not criminals. They're confectionery freedom fighters. 2. The flip-flop ban of Capri, Italy. Imagine being fined for footwear. On the picturesque island of Capri, Italy, wearing noisy flip-flops is illegal. The justification? Public safety, or more specifically, public peace. Authorities claim the flap-flap sound of rubber sandals disturbs the island's tranquil vibe. Locals can literally call the police if your footwear offends their ears. So while tourists sip wine on million-dollar terraces, somewhere a flip-flop fugitive is being reprimanded for rhythmically slapping down a cobblestone street. It's the only place where your shoes can get you a criminal record faster than shoplifting. Capri doesn't have a crime problem. It has a decibel problem. Moral of the story: in paradise, even your sandals need a silencer. 3. The Singapore chewing gum ban. Singapore banned chewing gum in 1992. Not drugs, not weapons, but gum. The government claimed it was ruining public property because vandals were sticking it on subway doors, which cost millions to clean. The punishment? Fines up to $100,000 or even prison. So in a country where crime is nearly non-existent, Big Gum became public enemy number 1. They eventually allowed therapeutic gum, but only with a doctor's prescription. Imagine explaining that to your pharmacist. Yes, I need gum for medical purposes. It's a minty emergency. Singapore may have clean streets, but at what cost? Somewhere, a rebellious teen is quietly blowing bubbles in an alley, living dangerously, one chew at a time. 4. The Great Tomato Ban. Italy's public sauce scandal. Only in Italy could tomatoes cause a national crisis. In 2019, a small Italian town banned the public sale of canned tomato sauce during summer festivals, claiming that people splattering marinara on cobblestone streets created a public safety hazard. Apparently, slipping on a rogue drop of bolognese had become the Mediterranean equivalent of black ice. Vendors were forced to serve sauce-free versions of traditional dishes, which is basically a culinary crime against humanity. One furious nonna reportedly shouted, "If sauce is illegal, then I am an outlaw." The law didn't last long, mostly because tourists started boycotting the dry spaghetti district. Authorities finally reversed it after realizing you can't ban the national condiment of a country that bleeds ragu. But for one weird summer, the Italian police were patrolling for pasta crimes, protecting citizens from the deadly menace of overenthusiastic sauce. 5. Japan's dancing ban, when rhythm was a threat. In Japan, from 1948 until 2015, dancing after midnight was technically illegal. The government called it a public safety regulation, meant to stop crime in post-war nightclubs. But decades later, it was still enforced, meaning police could literally arrest you for doing the Macarena at 12:01 a.m. Clubs had to post signs reading "No dancing allowed," which sounds like a deleted scene from Footloose, Tokyo Drift. The ban created a bizarre nightlife ritual. People would freeze mid-song, drinks in hand, pretending they weren't moving rhythmically to the beat. Authorities claimed it was about moral safety, but everyone knew it was just bureaucratic inertia doing the cha-cha of absurdity. When the law finally got repealed, thousands of people celebrated by, you guessed it, dancing illegally one last time, because nothing says freedom like committing a crime to Beyoncé. 6. Venice's pigeon feeding ban. Venice, one of the most romantic cities on Earth, has banned the most innocent act imaginable: feeding pigeons. In 2008, the city declared it illegal to toss breadcrumbs in St. Mark's Square. Why? Public safety, of course. Too many birds, too much poop, too many tourists treating pigeons like feathery Disney extras. The fine? Up to €500 for tossing a single crumb. Venice essentially criminalized compassion, turning grandma feeding birds into a high-stakes outlaw. Meanwhile, street vendors used to sell birdseed for profit, until the same city fined them for aiding and abetting seed distribution. Locals claim the ban worked, but it also ended one of the city's weirdest tourist traditions. Now the pigeons just glare at visitors like underfed mobsters, plotting revenge. Somewhere in Venice, a rogue traveler is probably feeding one in secret. The city's quiet rebellion with wings. 7. North Korea's ban on blue jeans. North Korea banned blue jeans for public safety. Not because denim is dangerous, but because it's American. In a regime obsessed with control, Levi's became a symbol of rebellion. So, in 2016, the government outlawed them, calling it a measure to protect citizens from imperialist influence. Owning a pair could literally get you arrested. Instead, citizens must wear state-approved trousers that say, "I comply." It's fashion fascism at its most absurd. Meanwhile, smuggled jeans became a black market luxury item, traded like gold. Teenagers held secret denim parties, showing off contraband pants behind closed doors. You have to admire the irony, a country so afraid of Western influence that it declared war on cotton. When a pair of jeans becomes an act of defiance, you know your government has officially lost the thread. 8. The Great Salmon Ban, Norway's safety-first seafood policy. Norway once banned salmon sushi in its own country, even though it invented the dish's global popularity. The reasoning? Public health and safety. Officials worried that raw salmon wasn't safe to eat, despite exporting millions of tons to Japan every year. In other words, Norwegians couldn't eat their own national fish because their government didn't trust them with chopsticks. The absurdity reached peak irony when Japanese chefs started calling it Norwegian sushi, while Norwegians were stuck eating it cooked. Only after decades of global pressure did Norway quietly lift the restriction. By then, the rest of the world had already decided Norway's salmon was the best. They just weren't allowed to taste it at home. It's a story that proves sometimes safety regulations are just international-level self-sabotage, served raw, with a side of embarrassment. 9. France's ketchup ban, the condiment coup d'etat. In 2011, France declared war not on another country, but on ketchup. The government banned ketchup from school cafeterias, claiming it endangered traditional French cuisine. Officials said the sauce was erasing national identity, as if a few squirts of Heinz could overthrow centuries of culinary heritage. Kids suddenly found themselves in a tomato tyranny where fries were naked and sandwiches went sauceless. The rule allowed ketchup only when served with fries, a weekly act of rebellion on cafeteria trays. Some schools even smuggled in small bottles like black market contraband. Imagine being 10 years old and whispering, "Psst, I got some Heinz in my backpack." The ban wasn't really about health. It was about pride. France wanted to protect bechamel, hollandaise, and dignity from the red menace of America's favorite squeeze bottle. Vive la sauce. But only once a week. 10. Thailand's no-driving shirtless ban. In Thailand, it's illegal to drive shirtless. Yes, even in 110-degree heat. The law was introduced in Bangkok to preserve public decency and prevent distraction. Apparently, a sweaty torso behind the wheel was considered a national threat. Tourists found out the hard way, with police pulling them over mid-sunburn to issue fines for topless traffic offenses. Imagine being cited for indecent exposure while just trying not to melt into your scooter seat. The government justified it as a public safety rule. Supposedly, shirtless drivers cause accidents because people can't stop staring. Locals joked that the real reason was to protect car seats from sweaty chaos. Either way, the country famous for street food, full moon parties, and ancient temples decided bare shoulders were a step too far. Thailand's unofficial motto might as well be, drive safe, stay clothed, and keep your nipples off the highway. 11. The Don't Die ban, Italy's morbid masterpiece. In 2007, the mayor of Falciano del Masico, Italy, banned residents from dying, literally. The town cemetery was full, and bureaucratic delays prevented construction of a new one, so the mayor made it official. It is forbidden to die within the city limits. Locals laughed, until two residents immediately broke the law by dying anyway, forcing officials to store their coffins in neighboring towns. The absurd decree was labeled a temporary safety regulation, as if mortality were a zoning issue. Residents joked about wearing helmets to bed or getting death permits. The law became a global meme and a bureaucratic monument to denial. In a country famous for art and wine, one small town made death itself illegal, proving Italy's eternal commitment to drama. It's the only place on Earth where dying is not just tragic, it's against the law. 12. Canada's ban on baby walkers. Leave it to Canada to make baby mobility a matter of national safety. In 2004, the country became the first to outright ban baby walkers, those rolling contraptions that let toddlers scoot around like miniature NASCAR drivers. Officials called them a public hazard after too many babies discovered gravity via staircases. But instead of regulating them, Canada went full zero tolerance. Selling or even owning one could land you a fine of up to $100,000. Yes, a six-figure penalty for a plastic ring on wheels. Parents were outraged. Black market baby walkers started circulating like contraband Formula One equipment. Customs even seized them at the border, as if toddlers were plotting a tiny rebellion. To this day, the ban stands, making Canada the only country where crawling is legal, but assisted walking is a crime. Safety first, freedom of movement later. 13. The Swiss goldfish ban. Compassion gets weird. Switzerland, land of neutrality and chocolate, decided to take empathy to absurd new depths by banning the ownership of a single goldfish. The law states you must buy them in pairs, because it's considered cruel for one to live alone. Authorities argued that goldfish experience loneliness and psychological distress without a buddy. So yes, it's technically illegal in Switzerland to own one lonely fish. You can have a Ferrari or a flamethrower under certain conditions, but heaven forbid a solo goldfish. Enforcement is real. Pet stores refuse to sell just one. Critics call it the world's most polite overreach, a law so kind it's almost silly. Still, it says something charmingly Swiss. In a world of war and chaos, someone took the time to worry about aquatic depression. They turned empathy into legislation and made friendship legally mandatory. 14. Iran's ban on mullets. In 2010, Iran's government decided to save its citizens from the greatest threat to morality: bad haircuts. The Ministry of Culture officially banned mullets, ponytails, and Western devil hairstyles, calling them unsafe to the nation's spiritual health. Barbers were instructed to enforce the rule, literally policing sideburns. Salons that ignored it faced closure, and posters circulated showing approved haircuts that looked like every 1980s yearbook photo before fun existed. Imagine living in a world where Billy Ray Cyrus is contraband. Ironically, the crackdown only made forbidden hairstyles more popular underground. Some brave souls hosted secret haircut parties, trimming each other into rebellion. It's proof that banning a mullet never kills it. It just grows back stronger, with more attitude. Somewhere in Tehran, there's probably still a hidden barbershop humming "Achy Breaky Heart" in defiance. 15. The UK pillow fluffing ban, Olympic-grade overreach. At one point during the 2012 London Olympics, hotel staff were instructed not to fluff pillows while guests were present because of health and safety concerns. The fear? That stray feathers could cause allergic reactions or, brace yourself, startle guests. Workers had to fluff pillows in secret, behind closed doors, like they were running a covert bedding operation. Inspectors even monitored compliance. The result was surreal: thousands of hotel employees sneaking around with pillows like undercover marshmallows. It became the ultimate symbol of British bureaucracy: polite, cautious, and faintly ridiculous. When foreign athletes heard the rule, they thought it was satire. But no, it was real, proving that in the UK, even your bedtime comfort requires government oversight. Somewhere, a housekeeper still whispers, "For Queen and country," and properly aerated pillows. 16. The Italian gelato ban. When ice cream became too loud, Venice strikes again. In 2013, city officials banned people from eating gelato on historic bridges or monuments, calling it a public safety and decorum rule. Apparently, a tourist licking pistachio near a 500-year-old statue was more dangerous than motorboats in a canal. Police started patrolling with the authority to fine anyone caught mid-lick, up to €500. Imagine, You've survived airport security, jet lag, and overpriced espresso, only to be arrested for dessert. Locals dubbed it the gelato crackdown, and tourists began hiding cones in napkins like criminals smuggling dairy. The rule wasn't about safety, of course. It was about image. Venice wanted elegance, not sticky fingerprints on marble. But in trying to protect their art, they accidentally turned gelato into rebellion. To this day, visitors joke that eating ice cream in Venice is the sweetest crime on earth. 17. Bhutan's ban on tobacco, the world's nicest prohibition. In Bhutan, smoking isn't just frowned upon, it's illegal. The tiny Himalayan kingdom banned the sale and distribution of tobacco in 2004, calling it a threat to national happiness. It's the only country in the world where cigarettes are fully outlawed, not for health reasons, but for spiritual purity. Tourists can bring a few packs for personal use, but must pay a massive import tax and can't smoke in public. Locals caught lighting up risk fines or even jail time. Yet somehow, Bhutan remains one of the happiest nations on Earth, possibly because nobody's allowed to stress smoke. Of course, a black market bloomed instantly, run by smugglers sneaking cigarettes across the Indian border like contraband joysticks. The law may have noble intentions, but it also created the strangest paradox ever. A paradise where puffing a Marlboro is considered a moral crisis. China's ban on reincarnation without government approval. In 2007, China passed a regulation that sounds like a Monty Python sketch. Tibetan Buddhist monks are forbidden to reincarnate without official permission from the government. The law was framed as a public safety and religious order measure, because apparently dying and being reborn now requires paperwork. Monasteries must submit applications explaining who plans to be reborn, where, and when. Failure to comply makes your reincarnation illegal. The goal was to control the next Dalai Lama's selection, but it reads like spiritual bureaucracy at its peak. Imagine a cosmic DMV, where your soul needs a stamp of approval. Even atheists had to laugh. It's one of the few laws in history that manages to regulate both religion and the afterlife, proof that when governments run out of earthly problems, they start micromanaging eternity. 19. The Turkmenistan lip sync ban. In 2005, Turkmenistan's president banned lip syncing, not just in concerts, at weddings, on TV, and even at private parties. The reason? To protect public culture and authenticity. The government declared that fake singing endangered the nation's artistic integrity, as if Milli Vanilli had personally traumatized them. Enforcement was serious. Police raided events to ensure every performer was using their real voice. Imagine karaoke night under surveillance, with officers checking your vocal cords for honesty. Professional singers lost work, and schoolchildren were warned that mouthing lyrics was a moral offense. It's one of the few times in history when bad singing was considered patriotic. Ironically, after years of silence, Turkmen pop made a comeback online. Heavily auto-tuned, of course. You can ban lip syncing, but you can't outlaw irony. 20. The U.S. Catch the fish, don't scare it. Law. In Tennessee, it's illegal to catch fish with your bare hands, a law justified as public safety. Supposedly, hand fishing, or noodling, was too dangerous because it might lead to drowning or unnecessary aquatic disturbance. Essentially, the government banned men from wrestling catfish. Locals were furious, calling it an attack on Southern tradition. Some ignored it, leading to hilarious arrests. Shirtless fishermen hauled in for reckless noodling. The law stands today, proving that bureaucracy can find danger anywhere, even in the arms of nature. The logic? It's for your safety. The real reason? Lawmakers clearly never met a proud noodler. It's one of those regulations that perfectly sums up America, the land of the free. Unless your hobby involves wrangling wildlife like an aquatic cowboy. 21. Iceland's pet ban, when dogs were declared public enemies. For decades, owning a dog in Reykjavik was illegal. In 1924, Iceland banned dogs from the capital, claiming they spread tapeworms and endangered public safety. Only cats were allowed, giving the city major crazy cat person energy. Officials treated dogs like fugitives. If you wanted one, you needed a special permit and a signed declaration of loyalty to hygiene. For 60 years, children grew up without man's best friend, while cats ruled the icy streets like furry overlords. The law wasn't repealed until the 1980s, when health standards improved. and Icelanders suddenly realized how weird it was to outlaw pets in a country with volcanoes and Arctic winds. To this day, older residents remember the dogless decades as a bizarre chapter of national caution, proof that sometimes safety goes too far and gets a little rough. 22. The Australian garlic bread ban, a culinary crime scene. Australia once managed to outlaw garlic bread, and no, this isn't satire. In 2010, a regional health department banned local restaurants from serving it at outdoor events, claiming it posed a fire hazard. The explanation? Too many food stalls used portable toasters, which, according to bureaucrats, risked turning festivals into flaming buffets. For a full summer, Aussies were forced to eat pasta without the sacred side dish that defines Western civilization. Outrage was immediate. Citizens started bringing homemade garlic bread to fairs like protest flags made of butter and carbs. One newspaper headline read, "Government declares war on flavor." The ban was quietly dropped after inspectors realized that banning toasted bread didn't prevent fires, it just caused emotional ones. To this day, locals jokingly refer to the incident as the Crust Rebellion, a dark time when public safety came between humanity and happiness, and lost. 23. India's kite ban, the airborne threat. In 2017, several Indian states banned kite flying during festivals, claiming the strings were too dangerous. The reasoning? Coated strings used for competitions could injure birds, people, or power lines. Overnight, a centuries-old pastime became a public safety issue. Police confiscated spools, kids went underground to fly kites in secret, and one mayor famously declared, "No string shall threaten the sky." The irony? Fireworks, motorcycles, and open electrical wires were still fine. So while cities glowed with explosions, a 10-year-old could be arrested for launching a piece of paper into the air. Some locals began referring to it as sky censorship. Authorities later softened the law, but by then, thousands of kites had been seized and destroyed, making it the first recorded instance of an aerial rebellion grounded by red tape. It's proof that when safety goes airborne, logic doesn't always come along for the ride. 24. The German pillow ban, because it's a weapon, apparently Germany, known for precision and order, once decided that a pillow could be classified as a passive weapon. According to certain legal rulings, if you hit someone with a pillow and it causes harm, say during a particularly aggressive pillow fight, it can count as assault with a weapon. The rule was rooted in workplace liability law, but quickly spread to the public imagination. People began joking that slumber parties were now battlegrounds. Imagine explaining to police that you didn't attack your roommate, you just lightly smothered them with regulated fluff. The German press had a field day, running headlines like "The Feathered Menace." While no one's been imprisoned for pillow violence yet, the law technically stands. It's a bizarre reminder that even in a country famous for efficiency, someone somewhere once looked at a goose-down cushion and thought, potential felony. 25. The U.S. Kinder scooter ban, fun on four wheels denied. In the early 2000s, several U.S. school districts banned scooters, citing public safety concerns. The wave of bans started after a few high-profile accidents, leading schools to declare war on the Razor scooter craze. Principals claimed they were too fast, too loud, and too fun, which is basically every kid's dream description of transportation. Children had to walk in shame, clutching their folded scooters like contraband. Parents were furious, arguing that banning scooters for safety was like banning recess for gravity. Some schools even stationed hall monitors to intercept offenders mid-ride, the world's slowest high-speed chase. Eventually, the bans faded as kids moved on to skateboards and phones, which ironically caused way more injuries. But for a short, hilarious time in the early 2000s, scooters were treated like rebellious symbols of chaos, wheels of pure anarchy, outlawed by adults who forgot what fun feels like. 26. The South Korean gaming curfew, bedtime by law. In 2011, South Korea introduced the shutdown law, banning anyone under 16 from playing online video games after midnight. The government called it a public safety measure, claiming late-night gaming caused fatigue and social decay. Overnight, millions of teenagers were booted from StarCraft at 12 a.m. sharp. Gaming cafes went silent, parents celebrated, and kids learned one universal truth: where there's Wi-Fi, there's rebellion. Teens quickly found VPNs, fake accounts, and sleep mode loopholes to keep playing, transforming the ban into an Olympic-level hacking competition. Critics pointed out the absurdity. Students were free to study until 4 a.m., but forbidden to play games past midnight. After a decade of digital curfews, the law was finally repealed. The official reason? To trust youth with responsibility. The real reason? The government got tired of being beaten by teenagers at their own enforcement game. 27. The U.S. raw milk ban, Mutiny for freedom. Across much of America, selling unpasteurized milk is illegal. Authorities claim it's for public safety. Bacteria, they say, are lurking in every drop. But to a small army of raw milk activists, it's government overreach in liquid form. Farmers have been raided, fined, and even arrested for selling milk straight from the cow. Supporters argue it's natural and nutritious. Officials argue it's a microbial minefield. The conflict turned so heated that underground milk networks formed, complete with secret deliveries and code words like fresh produce. One Wisconsin farmer famously called it the Dairy Underground. The irony is delicious. A nation that sells deep-fried Oreos outlawed raw milk. The battle continues to this day, with rebels pouring contraband dairy into mason jars, whispering for freedom before taking a sip. Humans will ban anything if you give them a clipboard and a title. From denim to dessert, we've turned safety into an Olympic sport of overreaction. So, tell me, which one of these bans wins the gold medal for stupidity? Comment your pick before someone decides that's unsafe too.